Okay, hello. My name is Lauren Barber, and I am with Peace at Home Family Shelter. I am the community education coordinator there. And let's see, here is me. But my term actually ends at Peace at Home in 2 weeks. And so this is Abby Underwood, and she will be the community education coordinator for this next full year until August 2023. So you can contact her if you have any questions or would like further training on domestic violence and the services that Peace at Home has. So anyway, this is what we will be talking about today. First of all, just domestic violence, what it is in general, who it affects, the dynamics of abuse, the types of abuse. We'll also be talking about why domestic violence is relevant to you as people who work in a medical setting, what you can possibly do to help victims of domestic violence. We'll also talk about services that Peace at Home offers because our services specifically address barriers that survivors of domestic violence face. And so it's important to know specifically what resources are out there in the community so that you guys can refer patients and clients and people to us so that we can help more people. We'll also talk about how to just be involved with our organization as a whole. So domestic violence is the willful intimidation, physical assault, battery, sexual assault, and or other abusive behavior as part of a systematic pattern of power and control over another person. And this is in the context of a dating, family, or household relationship. So this is kind of a broader term for just like abuse among different combinations of people, but intimate partner violence specifically is what Peace at Home addresses, and this is abuse between two intimate partners, like a couple. They can be dating, married, living together, share kids together. That is intimate partner violence. So that is the clients that we serve. This is what they are going through. So just kind of giving the context a little to domestic violence. Domestic violence means violence like within an abusive relationship. So in the context of a relationship, different behaviors can create a healthy relationship, an unhealthy relationship, or a straight up abusive, violent relationship. And so a healthy relationship can look like this. The two partners involved can make decisions together. They can discuss what they're dealing with. They can be honest with their feelings, and they don't feel like they're walking on eggshells or like they have to be afraid of what the other person will think. They don't have to be afraid that the other person will hurt them mentally, physically, whatever. Both people can trust that their boundaries will be respected, that they will be able to maintain their autonomy and individuality. Yeah, so this is kind of a picture of what a healthy, ideal relationship looks like when both partners are getting their needs met, they both feel respected and are respecting the other person. And then kind of getting into like an unhealthier tone in relationships. We have some examples from pop culture. So we have a lot of Taylor Swift songs. They paint really good pictures of kind of the jealousy, revenge, fight kind of mindset that can occur in more kind of toxic dynamics between people. So we have a few Taylor Swift songs. We have this Johnny Cash song, Cocaine Blues. I think a few Johnny Cash songs kind of romanticize this like him kind of like beating his partner and like her kind of having it coming and like things like that. Yeah, so just there are some songs in pop culture that kind of normalize and glamorize even unhealthy abusive dynamics. But then some of this media on the right, we have Made on Netflix, Gone Girl on Hulu, and then we have a short film by Taylor Swift, which is a really self-aware kind of look at what it feels like to be gaslit and kind of the progression of a relationship kind of developing more unhealthy patterns. So the ones on the right, I really recommend. I really recommend watching Made on Netflix. It gives a really realistic portrayal of barriers that survivors of domestic violence face. So then we have unhealthy relationships. This is just kind of this list is giving kind of a picture of like behaviors that exist in a relationship that's kind of, unhealthy. So, for example, there aren't as clear of boundaries as there are, like in a healthy relationship. The dynamic is kind of about control and power. There's a lot of insecurity and maybe like jealous feelings, and it's more about power and control than love and respect. And yeah, let's move on to an abusive relationship. So going back to the unhealthy relationship, this doesn't necessarily mean, you got to get out of there, like red flag. Like sometimes relationships can fluctuate and kind of, be in a more unhealthier place. But both people, are capable of growing and developing healthier traits and, just like having a healthier dynamic with each other. But an abusive relationship is usually, I would say it's not as easily salvaged. And by that, I mean, if someone is hurting you physically, if they're capable of that, it's very unlikely that they're able to just change that. That is a personal, deeply rooted issue that they will have to put a lot of work into in order to change. Because, yeah, if they're okay with physically causing someone else pain, physically, emotionally, and mentally as well, then that is a relationship you really need to run from. Yes, so some traits of an abusive relationship are the putting down and humiliating, the imbalance of power. Usually one person is kind of the more dominant person in control. They get to call all the shots, etc. And then it just might be like a constant power struggle back and forth, where both partners like don't want to be taken advantage of, and they want to kind of just control the other person and have an influence in all their decisions, where they're going, what they're doing, what they're wearing, things like that. So yes, so that is an abusive relationship. And when talking about like who is an abuser, the easy answer is that anyone who chooses to be abusive is choosing to be abusive. So anyone is capable of being abusive. We all are, but we're all also capable of developing healthy traits so that we can have healthy relationships. Yes, so an abuser can be anyone you know in your family. You may, love an aunt or an uncle or whatever, and they may be like really great to you and be an important member in the community, but then also they're being abusive towards their partner behind closed doors. So we know people like this. We may not know exactly what's going on, we may have suspicions, but people who abuse their partners are all around us. they don't look a certain way, they're not from a certain group of people, they're literally everywhere because all humans are capable of hurting other humans. And we're also, this is a big point, we're also all capable of, choosing not to hurt other humans. So that second bullet point, abuse is a choice, is a big point in this. So abuse is also a learned behavior, and we can learn it from our families. We can be a part of, a generational cycle of abuse. So we can have, empathy for that. Like, it's no one's fault if they were a traumatized child who was in a family where their parents were abusive to each other, to their children, things like that. That's not our fault. But growing up as an adult, there has to be an accountability there, because as adults, we all have a choice whether to keep that abuse going or to heal from that, so we can treat other people respectfully and with love and kindness and care, and not keep that abuse going. So abuse is a learned behavior, but it's also a choice that we all get to make. Another thing about abusive partners is that there is a desire to gain and maintain power and control. They can feel like their own feelings and needs are a priority and that they have the right to hurt the other person. There's also a link between narcissism and violent behaviors. Yes. And a big theme is that the abusive partner or both abusive partners, it's like they want their partner to stay. So it's kind of a cycle of like pushing them away with abuse and then pulling them back, and just a cycle over and over. And then this is the power and control wheel. This is what we kind of use in domestic violence circles to kind of help explain this occurrence of domestic violence. But also, there is the cycle of it. Well, let me explain this real quick. So the power and control wheel, on the inside of the wheel, is just talking about subtle, continual behaviors over time that an abusive person may use on their partner. The outer ring represents physical and sexual violence, which is the bigger, kind of more tangible, obvious violences that reinforce the daily kind of abuse that they're doing. So this is what we kind of use more prominently now, but there's also the cycle of abuse, which is just a way of explaining that sometimes oftentimes with abusive relationships, there is a tension building phase where partners are fighting. There's, more emotional abuse and mental, psychological abuse. This might be over weeks or days or hours even, but it's just kind of a pattern of tension building and then an explosion phase, which is where one or both partners blow up on each other. There's might be violence, like actual physical violence. And then afterwards, there's kind of like, as the dust settles, there's the honeymoon phase, and this could be days or weeks or whatever. And this is where one or both partners kind of make up with each other, say, I'm so sorry, I will never do that again. And they kind of pick up the pieces as best as they can, and then it kind of is just that over and over and over, and it never really, the statement, it'll never happen again, that doesn't really ring true in most dynamics. So this is the beginning of the next part. So this was part 1, and we'll talk about this in the next part.